Question everything. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Today we have Bill Kurland on the show where we bridge the gap between what you don't and what you want to know. I'm coming up with the intro on the fly here. We were just talking right before the show and found out we have so much in common. Bill, misfits are the best fits. Tell me about that right there.
Yeah, so not just a punk rock fan and it being Chicago, it's misfits weather, it's Halloween time, it's hoodies, it's devil lock stuff. But yeah, I just realized that I don't have the big logos on my CV. I'm as much a creative director as a content UX designer, as a strategist. And I've always been that way. I'm a musician, as you can see, as you are, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I never liked genre. And it would be what do you sound like? I'd be I'd hate that explanation. Whatever it sounds like to you.
Yeah, why are you trying to put in a box?
Yeah, so it was just a way to own it and say, if you're really looking for innovators, if you're really looking for people who, didn't go to the Ivy League college, if you're really looking for people who are, on the margins, then misfits are the best fits, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you were just talking about that in our field and user experience, you don't really find people that went the linear path and decided, I'm going to do user experience. Usually it's just this awesome story, which is why I love interviewing people in our field, is because it's how did this and this lead to this? And I mean, that's what creativity is, right? Creativity is just the ability to connect dots. And the more life you live, the more you do, the more dots you have to connect. And I don't know about you, but I know as a creative for myself, I've got my hands in 7 things at a time at all times.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have to be saved from myself sometimes I've got these 7 different projects and, it's rein it in, Kurland, focus on the thing. But yeah, and I think sometimes, it's engrossing, right? Do you find yourself just in the zone, in flow, and all of a sudden, you've forgotten to eat?
So thank you for talking about my today. I got up at 4:45 to go to a yoga class. Usually yoga is relaxing, but this one was warrior sculpt. So not only are we moving in flow, we're moving fast in a heated environment. I forgot my water bottle. We've got weights. And I'm I wasn't ready. I was not ready for this. So I walked out the class to get water. That's just not a good idea. I come back in, I try to finish off strong, look up at 11 o'clock as I'm doing work and think, I haven't eaten today. But that zone that you speak of, that creative zone that we get into, it's hyper focus, right? I saw that you're not neurodivergent as well. Did I read that right?
Yeah. So I've got, some mood disorder stuff, and I've been through some things and have some things to work out. And even recently, have had to struggle with that, with COVID, and that we've all been isolated. So things like this have been really helpful as far as depression, anxiety, PTSD, that sort of stuff. Being in recovery and from a number of different things. And yeah, it's been great to do these conversations, especially with you now. But it's amazing how generous people are. In this field, and to have conversations. I reached out to one of the heads of Collins, this design agency that's out of San Francisco and New York, just out of the blue, said, I really love this work that you did for San Francisco Symphony, this brand identity work, and would love to learn more about it, and expected to hear nothing back, just kind of like almost like a cold call. And he pointed me to the creative directors who did it, to this guy, Ben Crick, who was in charge of it. He, for whatever reason, was more than happy to have a half-hour virtual coffee with me and talk about that work. He pointed me to the other creative director who, they're friends. I think they live in apartments in the same building above and below each other. So we had a conversation, just like, what am I doing talking to like these D and AD winning creative directors who are just like, yeah, let's talk. Like we're all just, just very generous people.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that aspect of just this industry.
Yeah, I was not ready for it. Like, we spoke just briefly on imposter syndrome before we started the call, and that was the reigning emotion and underlying theme of me jumping into this was nobody's going to want me without a degree. A UX certificate's not going to do much. Like, yeah, I'm creative. I've been creative my whole life. I can put things together at lightning speed, but that doesn't matter. Nobody's going to want to talk to me. And I get to my first meetup, and the first guy that helped me, I actually have a podcast with him as well, Adam Polanski, just poured into me, gave me all these books to read, told me what I would get from them, told me to report back to him. I did. I gave him a review on this book that I read, How to Make Sense of Any Mess by Abby Covert. He put that feedback on Twitter, and she actually replied. And that felt so good. And that's when I realized, oh, this community is like a family. I've just been inducted into a new family. And it's just like you described. I had a conversation with this person who directed me to this person, had a conversation with them, and here we are 7 conversations later, I'm in a role.
Yeah, it's amazing just how generous everybody is or can very well be in UX. As sometimes compared, it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this. Like, I feel like marketing and advertising can be much less so than UX. Feels more competitive, feels more like a bit of the swinging, something's a swinging. And but yeah, would be curious to hear what you've thought of creative and marketing outside of UX.
I feel like there's a really big sense of pride in that field, in what they do and how they do it, and the accolades that they've acquired to do that. I'm glad that I got the mentorship and the people that poured into me that I did, because that made me want to give back. Like, I got 2 or 3 people jobs in UX before I ever broke in, and they were at meetups with me. It was like, at first I was like, wow, I can get someone else a job, but I can't get myself one. But it felt good. That initial emotion was the envy, right? Like, what? And then the next one was, wow, that was really cool. I want to do it again. Because it just feels good giving back. As far as content and marketing, I had a manager in my first role that had a background in marketing. And he presented himself in such a professional manner that I think at times it was to his detriment. And I came in and I was me. I was open. I was just real, like human. Not to say that he wasn't, just I came with a different approach, more open and relaxed approach. And the stakeholders on the call said, we like Gregory. We want him to present from now on. And I felt like that caused a rift in the relationship from there. Slightly. I don't know it could have been just my perspective, but I did see things kind of change from there. And I kind of got put in the background, which that was my experience with content and marketing. And like we were talking about, I don't know if we were talking about it just now or before, but that, yeah, we were just talking about it. The being involved in so many things. I don't know if it's the same for you, if you deal with this, but writing content for me, it's great up here. When I have to slow down and actually write it down or type it out is where I get lost.
Yeah, I get lost. I get lost in the thoughts. I get lost in, maybe this comes from being in music, and maybe this is the same for you too, of like if I get a melody or something, or like a riff,
Yeah.
like if I don't capture it,
Yeah.
I'm just terrified I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
And I remember I've always been like a huge fan of Masterclass, and I was watching the Danny Elfman Masterclass,
Okay.
and he was talking about how a melody came into his head when he was at his daughter's wedding. And he was like, my options are that I let it go, or that while my daughter is walking down the aisle, I look like a sociopath who's singing into his song, or into his phone rather. And he was like, so I had to let it go, but it was a debate in my head whether or not I was going to be singing this melody into the song while my daughter walked down, or in my phone while my daughter walked down the aisle. So there's like some sort of obsessive compulsive thing, I think, within creativity that is just like, it's going to go away and then I'm never going to have it again, like as though ideas don't come to us like constantly, like just flowing.
And never at the convenient times. It's
Right.
always like when you don't have anything to write it down with, no way to capture it. It's like when you're holding something with two hands and your nose starts itching, or you have to sneeze, or you're chewing on food and you have to sneeze. I don't know if you get that one.
Yeah, I've gotten that. It's
It's
awful.
like God has a sense of humor, man. But I wanted to know if you could actually relate to that, because that part you said about like looking like a sociopath. I have whiteboards all over my house now. I've got one in front of me, one over here, one glass one on the wall over there, and then a giant life size, like it's taller than me, wider than me. I want to say it's like a 5 foot by 7 foot. When the ideas start coming, I look like a sociopath writing it out on board. I had an idea for this speech slash series in my coaching just come to me as I was coming home from dropping my daughter off at her dorm. She moved into her dorm, and it was just like, what do you do in the aftermath of raising kids, being in a toxic relationship, and now it's finally over? Like your last one is out, you've paid her off, right? Child support no more. What do you do in the aftermath? And then the acronym came to me. It was accept what is, forgive what was, or accept what is, forgive what was, trust in what will be, evolve into the person you were meant to be, rise to the next challenge, and make a transition happen. So aftermath. And I've been
I've never heard that
reviewing,
before.
I mean, it just came to me. And so I'm driving and I'm typing into my phone, and then I'm like, well, that's not safe. So I start recording it, like me saying it. Then I get out of the car. My wife's in the garage. She's always in there chilling. And I run to the whiteboard. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this just came to me. I need to write it out. And whole speech, whole series, like it could be a keynote, it could be a series. I just decided to make it a series. It'll probably be a keynote too. It's just funny that those things never come at the right times. And I think it is the creative curse, right? I don't know how many times I've been trying to go to sleep, and right as I'm about to doze off, You already know what I'm about to say.
Yeah, I feel the pain. I know what's coming. Yeah. Please continue.
The best piece of art pops into my head, the best song lyric, and then it won't stop coming. I'm rapping an entire song in my head. And to that, let's bring it back to that content, right? It's harder for me to write something normal, but if I was to try to make it a song or rhyme it, it would come right out. I can't write. I can rap, I can write songs, but it's really hard for me to write content. It takes me forever to write something on Facebook without making it rhyme.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always feel, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I think in talking to a lot of writers, they feel as well, like there's the writer part, and then there's the editor part. And it's the writer's job to be that free flowing, toss everything against the wall, writer and creative. And then it's the editor's job to come in and, kind of strategically and more logically redline, not that anybody redlines anything anymore, but redline all those pieces and make the good edits. I think about it as like magic and logic, and just like the creatives are the magicians, and then the editors are the logicians who come in and make it make sense to people, with that a perspective.
It makes sense, and I have those people inside of me too. It's just getting them to sit down and focus long enough to get it done and staying on track, because I just said I can't write. It's easier for me to write music than it is for me to write content or write a book. I've tried to write a book multiple times and it turns into this autobiography where I'm skipping around my life trying to make a point here, but I'm going in circles that never complete themselves. And I'm like, every time I try to write one book, like a little ebook or something on one subject, it becomes an autobiography. So I'm like, I need some help.
For me, I don't know how much any of this will help, but maybe, from my experience, and this was even with this great design partner that I had. His name is Rodrigo Zulaga, Chilean, born in New York, but lived a lot in Santiago, and then moved back. Really good friend. We still text all the time. He helped build the design system for Conversant, Epsilon Conversant, the UI interface. They did some great work with that. And yeah, we were talking, we had to fly down to Tampa pretty regularly because the headquarters for our business was in Tampa. So we would spend a lot of time riding around in cars and on planes, and it was like being on tour a little bit, except you didn't have to sleep on a floor. So that was a really nice part. I slept on my share of floors.
Right.
And so anyway, so we were trying to find common ground of, between, the design and the writing. And the more and more I just talk to creatives, UXers, anybody, there is this volcanic kind of magma stage that we all have to go through where it just all needs to kind of explode and come out. And then, from there, it kind of cools off and it can be like shaped into something. And I just think about that a lot and how that just kind of seems like the creative process, and to embrace it more than think it should be anything other than what it is.
Now that you say that, that makes so much sense, because I've had to create structures for myself to be able to harness it, but I can't harness it while it's coming out or I'll stifle it, right? So you just let it all come out on all the whiteboards, all the paper, the napkins, whatever's in reach. And I mean, thank God for these phones, right? Voice recorders, Otter.ai, voice memos are my best friends. Notes, an iPhone. Um, I've talked to some editors and some people that do writing, and they've given me like Brandon Surratt. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She was in a program that a friend of mine started. It was called the Catalyst Constellation. It's for people like us who can put things together at lightning speed and have to backtrack to get everyone else to where we were because they were not here. And it's so hard to like, okay, just hop in my head so I can tell you how I got here. Long story short, she gave me this 5-minute chapter outline, asked a series of questions so that you can answer those questions and your chapter will be outlined in a way that will make sense and draw people to read the next chapter. When I started writing in that fashion, it made more sense, but it still was a process because I write and things come out all over the place. And then I'm looking at the structure and I'm like, wait, does that go here or here? Maybe I should have started with this one. And I'm like trying to piece. It just came to me. I just figured out how I'm going to do it. Have you ever seen these? My backpack's over there, but there's these whiteboard flashcards.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I got to show you this. Give me just a second.
Totally. Oh, wait, we might not be able to license that.
No, I love
Careful.
that, man. You did the musical interlude. Yes. True creative. Okay, so they have 8x11 size. I bought
Okay.
that, right?
Yeah.
They have flashcards with lines. Yeah. So it's
Any
like
good writer's got to have them.
right.
Yeah.
So they are dry erase.
Dry erase index cards. That's amazing. Oh man.
So what just came to my head is write your story on these and then storyboard it, move it around.
Yes. Yes. There's actually like one of the structures that's great. There's this company called Sephiro out of Italy. They came up with these Intuiti creative cards, which are basically like a tarot deck, but for I think it's Intuiti.
Oh,
Intuiti, from Italy. But yeah, basically like a tarot deck. Comes with a book, and it's great for just kind of creative inspiration. You look at a card and then try to discern what that card means to you, or you can pull a couple cards out and like start to tell a story. You can ask it questions and explore things. So just that idea that intuition leads intelligence sometimes, especially for sometimes people like us. And they also created this great thing called the Fabula Deck, which is a framework for fiction writers. So it's just a bunch of index cards that you can take out, and it has like characters or crisis or whatever. So I would bet that in connection with those dry erase index cards, you can tell a hell of a story.
yeah. And, storytelling is easy. My mom just called me a BS artist the other day because I can come up with a story right there on the fly and it sounds believable, which it is real. It's just she doesn't believe it because I'm her son. But I can also do that impromptu. I don't know how I do it. I know you can relate to this. You just have this constant theater going on in your head.
Yes. Yeah, there's always something going on up there. Yeah. it's really hard to be kind of, and that's where mindfulness for me comes in a lot, of trying to be more intentional and trying to
Yes.
actually be in the moment. Yeah. Yeah. How can I be in the moment if the moment isn't what I want it to be, Gregory? That's really the question.
I believe the answer to that, sir, is acceptance.
That's right. Yes, acceptance and surrender. Yeah, totally.
And acceptance is the answer to all my problems, right?
So here's a question for you. As far as design goes, when you think about kind of that interplay of structure versus, kind of, let's call it explosion, how do you, what does your process look like as a UX designer? Like, how do you like to create or go about designing?
I look like a sociopath.
Just a lot of
everything all over the place. And sometimes I'll get burnout trying to think and then go get something to eat. And in the middle of eating, it comes to me, or in the middle of a conversation with someone else that called me, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. It just really depends on what it is I'm designing for, what's the problem I'm trying to solve. Ideally, I'd like to use the design process in that order, or the double diamond method. Those work best when there's someone there, like a body double. Sometimes I'll just hop on the phone to be able to focus, because just having someone in the virtual setting hop on the phone, in real life, I just go in the room with someone, and even just that person being in the room helps the creativity come out. But there's a lot of whiteboarding, there's a lot of writing out, like actually physically writing things out. Something about making those connections on paper makes a difference. Like when I'm typing it all, like typing notes for a meeting or something that I'm on, it never sticks. So actually going back to the original creative, because I've quit doing music for like 10 years the way I used to do it. I was, like you said, there's this obsessive compulsive part of it. And if I'm not careful, I can be stuck doing music all hours of the day and forget to take care of myself or my responsibilities. I've got 5 kids. Can't really do that anymore, you know? Well, couldn't. So my process looks like every other creative process. There is no process. And that's the beauty of it, is it could be different every time. And like we're having this conversation and something comes to mind and it's like, oh, that's how I can solve that. You just saw my process happen.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm always curious, because I feel the same way. Of it's so collaborative and so malleable that there are those frameworks that we can use, design thinking or double diamond or whatever, or even like narrative structures of just thinking about like the classic monomyth Joseph Campbell, like hero's journey, and all of that kind of stuff, which I'm always trying to think about, like how do you get that into UX and into like information architecture. I haven't gotten there yet, but anyway, so using those things but not being like beholden to them, or like almost using those after the creative kind of explosion happens, to be like, okay, now all of this needs to go into something useful, and we put it into that structure. Like chicken or the egg, like what does it look like? I never know.
As you said that, I just imagined what my process looks like and what our process probably should look like, or looks like, and we don't even realize it is. Did you ever play with Legos?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Remember dumping the bucket out?
Yes.
That's the creative process. You dump the bucket out. There's a bunch of pieces. You can't stop that flow. because otherwise you're digging and you're hurting your hand trying to get to one, or you can't find one because they're all in there. But if you dump it out, sort it out, maybe sometimes even color code them or by the size, this one has 6, these have 4. Just these are flat, these are thick. I need all of these for this, sort them out, and then you can build. Storytelling. So there was actually a meme that I saw, and it was like data, all these Legos. Charts were like sorting them into colors, and then something like there was all different ways of sorting them out, but they still weren't pretty. Storytelling was a completely built Lego house. That's what our process is like. And I think that's actually have you read Change by Design?
No.
Change by Design is the book that Tim Brown wrote from IDEO.
Yeah.
And they're talking about all of the different design processes through the years and how design has evolved over the years. And I remember them talking about Lego and how, my entire UX career has been from home. So I never got to experience that collaborative, true in the room with people who are neurodivergent, where we get tired of doing something and they go off and have a beer, or they go off and play a video game or something to get their mind off of it. And all of a sudden these amazing things happen. And my experience before UX was in a toxic environment as far as corporate goes. I was an account manager, a position I didn't belong in because they wanted to keep me at the company. They saw something in me. That was not where I should have been. I should have been in UX then. I didn't know about it, but that was where I learned about it. And so the process of working for a company now feels like I need to be at the computer 8 hours a day and producing something. And that stifles my creative process. But even if they tell me that's not how we expect you to perform, we just need you to deliver results, however your creative brain makes it happen, it still feels like I'm doing something wrong if I step away and go for a walk or go to the gym and exercise or go play a video game to get my mind off of it. So it's been a process to try to adapt to being a creative finally in the field from home.
Yeah, and it's got to be a challenge for just all the culture work that companies are trying to do. Like I see a company like HubSpot, for example, that is just, it feels like the word they use is autonomy. And it feels to me like that is the word of the age, where we're all grown-ups, whether you're junior in your career or you're more senior or you're leading teams or whatever, what's expected of you and you know how to get it done, or you're able to raise your hand or encouraged to raise your hand to say, like, I'm not quite sure how I would do this. And you can do that work from anywhere, and you can do that in person, or you can do it in a remote setting, or you can do it on the time that works for you. So it's like bringing that kind of almost freelance mindset more into the corporate environment, I think. And so it's inspiring to me to see companies that say, like, vacation time, yeah, take whatever you want. Like if it's a down hour, like, and you want to read a book on, you want to read the definitive visual guide to design for a couple hours, like, to get into a new place, like, go for it. Or if you need to be in flow and turn off notifications for a couple hours, like, go for it. Like, we need to, in my opinion, end the always on kind of micromanagement tracking stuff. Like, I think that more than being remote is going to stifle creativity and innovation.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's more of that feeling, and it's not like it's imposed on me from the companies I've worked with. It's just an internal thing that I cannot turn off yet. I'm working on it. I'm actually in between roles at the moment. I have an interview for a role coming up for UX strategy on Monday, and it'll be with CVS and Aetna. I guess there was a merger there, and I'm excited about that because the reason I'm here today healthy is because of CVS and Aetna. A couple of years ago, I got cured from hepatitis C. I had it for 11 years. Because I had Aetna, CVS had a specialty pharmacy where they offered things like that, cures, and I was able to get Epclusa, a 12-week thing for it. It was $75,000. I paid $25 for it in the
That's
end.
amazing, man.
And I'm like, I've been going to doctors for years trying to ask for the interferon and the stuff you inject yourself. And they were like, don't put your body through the stress. It's not worth it. Just wait a little longer. They might have a cure. For some reason, the interferon was working differently for different ethnicities, which didn't make any sense. Like the cure rate was like 94% for Caucasian, and then it dropped to like 70% for African Americans or something below that, like 60, 50%. And then it was like Hispanic or Latino was 30% and Asians were like 1%. I'm like, how does a treatment discriminate? That doesn't make any sense.
That's crazy.
I'm really excited about that, and I'm thinking, that imposter's creeping in and saying, you don't know anything about strategy. But that's what my mind does on its own all the time. I just need to be able to tell that story about how I do strategy and how I can bring that value to the company.
Well, if they know what is good for them, they're gonna take you on, my friend, because you are you have that like just drive that companies need, and you have that personal like connection to it. So all the best, and I hope you get it. They would be very lucky to have you.
Thank you. That just made me feel something all up in here, man.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about to me about UX, and it's, whether you're strategy or research or content or design or whatever, it feels, again, I know we keep going back to this, but just very, compared to everywhere else I've been, which has been very exclusive, it feels way more inclusive than anywhere else I've been in any other capacity. And maybe it's because it's just rooted in that empathy of like, the goal is to understand where someone else is coming from, and therefore you just by your very nature drawn to that or exposed more to it than other people. I don't know.
That makes so much sense now that you say that. It's the nature of it is empathy. Like the core of what we do is empathy. And as you said that, I thought, how much user experience, like user-centered products, life in general is becoming user-centered, and that is changing the world. So our field is literally changing the world around us. Like I was reading Articulating Design Decisions by Tom Griever, and there's this section in the beginning that explains why what we do matters so much. And it's like people are always on, always connected, something that's in their pocket all the time, that they have access to the entire world. We decide how that experience is going to go. And that's a heavy weight. We have the power to shift politics. We have the power to shift views and opinions. And it's such a heavy responsibility. This is why stakeholders want to know like what you're doing. And you should need to be able to articulate why you made your design decisions. I was going to ask you about like content design. Do you have any advice, tips, or tricks for anyone that is either trying to enter or is struggling with it? Do you have anything that you could offer them that works for you? Like any process that you found in your journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was learning how to let go. Because as a creative, as a writer, there's that part of you that just gets very attached, right? Like you're like, this is mine. There's a piece of me in it. Like, I'm the one who's, being judged or attacked, or I'm the one who has to defend. Um, and so I think early on I struggled with that, and now it's coming to a place of it has nothing to do with that. Like mostly no one is coming after you, or we all want the best piece of work, and to just accept those perspectives and to welcome, not just accept but welcome them, and try to understand them and have that empathy to say, okay, this is where this person is coming from. And also then having the confidence, whether you feel it or not, whether you have that imposter syndrome or not,
Yeah.
to say, I as an expert believe that or have enough proof to say this is what it should be, and then be willing for that to fail miserably. Like
Yeah.
it's just going to happen, and you're going to learn something from it, or or it's going to reveal something, or it's just like, don't get your identity caught up in this work. Like, save that for your time when you get to do like your big passion projects. Like, that's why I've got music, that's why I've got some film stuff I'm working on, all those the 7 things that we all have in the fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I can, yeah, I probably can name 7 right now. I've helped to co-found a mutual mentorship program here in Dallas, that happens once a month, with a friend of mine that started on the concept of body doubles. So we're on our 3rd meetup coming up on the 30th, and helping co-found that. I've got this podcast / YouTube show. I've got a coaching business. I'm a designer. I'm a father. You're gonna think I'm crazy. I just joined Lifetime Fitness, and everyone there is like, "Are you a trainer? You know so much about this stuff. Are you a trainer?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. Where do I get a certification?" They're like, "Go to this website or this." So I did all my research, and I'm like, "I'm gonna go with ACE." So I just bought the course so I could learn to be a personal trainer on the side.
Nice.
Yeah, and 7th, that's that one that, as you're juggling all the other 6, the 7th is revolving. It's like at any moment, whatever's right there, I'm doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's that self-care thing that you were talking about, of like, how do I make sure that I'm doing the things that and giving myself a break. And it's one thing to be in it and to be restored by the process or the creativity, and it's another to just be like stuck in it, and your partner or roommate or what, if you have those, end up coming into the room and saying, are you going to go to bed, or are you going to eat some food, or are you gonna whatever. So that's always,
Up to the restroom.
yeah. Get up, get up. Yeah, so I'm curious, who like some of your who were like some of the big people. You mentioned 1 or 2 already, but who are some of the big people in your career and mentors to you that kind of helped shape where you are now?
There were so many. So there's a lot of the people that started the meetups around here just kind of took me on, and I'd show up to the meetups early, help out. stay late to help clean up if they needed it or if they let me, and speak to the people that put it on because I knew they were the ones pouring that information out. And I go to the source. I don't let fear kill that part of me. But James Helms of Intuit, Adrian Camille, I'm not sure where. Oh, she's it's a research company, but her story was interesting. She actually, I don't know that's her name on LinkedIn. That's her name on Facebook. Adrian. She's one of the founders of Dallas Black UX, and they have a conference they do every year. The biggest one for me was Brian Sullivan, and he started the Big Design Conference here in Dallas about 15, 20 years ago. Um, I actually ended up getting him as a mentor through a comment that I put out on LinkedIn. That before I posted the comment, it was something about user experience is not stakeholder experience. And I said something along the lines of the acronyms, stakeholder experience is technically sex and not the good kind because you are not in it, right? And I
Can we just wait a second? We blew right past that instead of giving it the moment it deserves. So bravo.
so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this was before I landed my first role, before I even knew like how I was going to get in. I'm laying in bed with my wife, I'm typing it out, and I showed it to her. I was like, this is either going to make or break my career, and I don't even care anymore. And I hit post, and she's like, wait. And she read it. She's like, Gregory. Put my phone down. I went to sleep, and I wake up the next morning, and the comment that he left on there, Brian Sullivan, was literally, hey, Greg, I like your comments. Let's do lunch. And I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. There's no way. And that's when I knew you just have to be yourself, right? I was trying to be something I wasn't. I was trying to fit in. And the problem is, or the solution is, I'm already meant to be here. This is what I do naturally. I just need to bring who I am to the table and explain it in a way that is palatable, you know? So what was, you asked me a question, right?
Yeah, it was about mentors, but now I'm going to go on a tangent. So I know exactly what you're talking about. You just have to be you. Because I had an interview with one of the FANG companies,
Yeah.
and I had twisted because I was just in this place at that time where I was questioning who I am or whatever. Was in a place where I was like trying to present what I thought they wanted me to be, instead of what I realized is the moment that the day was over, I was like, if I had just been Bill throughout all of that, I would have done much better. And it wasn't even like I would have gotten the position. It's just like I would have done better. I would have handled things better. I would have felt better. And that was a huge lesson, even with, I don't know, eight years into a career or whatever. Like, you still get that imposter syndrome, like we were talking about. And so it's just like, just be you and, bring you to the table. And I think it's those companies that welcome things like, bring your whole self to work, like that are in tune with the times, I guess, and with the people that want to, that are going to do the great work.
Yeah. Culture is a huge part of this because there are cultures that are still stuck in the last century. And I just dealt with those. I won't even mention any names. We'll say, when you said learning to let go, I feel like that whole 2 month stint of working with them was exactly that. I didn't get my work laptop for 20 days. I never got access to my licenses for like Sketch and all that stuff until the very last day I was there. And I was working from my personal computer. So my Mac wasn't up to par. I had to remove things off of it. I bought an 8 terabyte hard drive, moved everything onto it. That hard drive was sitting on the desk, and there's these holes here because there's 3 desks, but there's not anything in the corner to hold anything on. So there's this place where things can fall. My 8 terabyte hard drive fell one day. I found out I had data recovery, so there was hope. As I'm working there, hoping that I can find out whether I'd get my stuff back or not, when I found out that when my last day would be, I got the email. We were unable to recover your data. I lost so much, right? Trying to work for them. Then I moved everything to the drive that the company provided for me, thinking, okay, I work for the company now. I'm just contracting out for different places. So I can put all this here and it'll be saved for my portfolio later. All my work that I did in this short time. They deleted that drive. So not only did I lose everything of mine, I lost everything I did in that 2 months. And I erased it all off my computer, my personal computer, because I was like, oh, I mean, I've got it on the work computer now. I don't need it. I plan to be there for a while.
Yeah.
And I just had to really like sit in that emotion, because it was like, I hate losing things. Like we talked about, losing an idea, losing a melody. It's never going to come again. We're never going to be able to reproduce this again. There's that fear. But I think that whole instance was teaching me, let go. And that was the lesson I took from it. So when you said learning to let go as your best tip for people, and I I love your video testimonial on your portfolio. Your portfolio blows my mind, man. I love the creativity where you're like entertain, educate, and evoke. And you've got the different pictures and poses. The evoke picture is perfect. I almost want to do a screen share so people can see this.
BillKurland.com. Yeah, no, it was my wife, bless her, was the one who had to be a photographer for this thing. I was just like, I have this idea of like, I want to do these 3 things. So I used to be a hospital magician. It's for this great organization called Open Heart Magic. If anybody ever gets the chance to check it out, you basically spend, I would say 3-4 months learning how to go into a children's hospital, how to perform magic, how to put the magic in their hands, basically. So it's not like you're performing magic, it's like you're helping them perform the magic. And wonderful organization. So I did that for a couple years. And so I pulled out some of the stuff that I still had remaining, and was like, okay, there's magic. Let's do some magic stuff. So, this entertain piece, and then the logic thing, and grabbing my Lakoff book of metaphors we live by, and some of all that stuff. And yeah, and just being like a kid, because a lot of this is just being like a kid, and like a kid in front of the TV watching Saturday morning cartoons or whatever. So yeah, it was fun. And no, thanks for that. I like threw myself into that for a little while and got lost. And I think my wife is glad it's over. For now. For now.
Because you got to update it at some point, right?
Right. Yeah. For the next 3 to 4 hours, it's done.
Exactly. I love that. What I was going to say is that at the end, or somewhere in, oh, here it is. Generous words from C-suite leaders, collaborators, and direct reports. They also said humble, I swear. The fact that you were just so humble about your portfolio, and it's like gold, right? The video was, I didn't even think about that, but like you make me want to revamp my portfolio to really speak to who I am and not who I think people want me. Because most of the creatives I've seen that I actually really admire their portfolio, their whole personalities. I think the thing with me is Do I want to be the rapping UX designer? Do I really want to take that on? Is that going to look good in the C-suite? Are people going to accept that the person that's making the decisions for their company rapped on his portfolio, you know? I just don't know how that's going to pan out. And while I do rap clean, I do a lot of recovery rap. That's where it ended up heading. Where it started was like every other person that wants to be in music. We want to do what everyone else is doing. But when I found who I was in there, it just became like conversations like these would turn into songs. And the reason I got away from it is because there's power in music. There's power in the words we use, how we use them, and the emotions that we can evoke with our music. And if you're not responsible with that power, you can end up doing some harm. And I did a lot of harm with my music with women. And my living amends today is that I don't make songs like that anymore. And I don't harm women. But that power can be used for good. Have you ever felt like you're afraid to use your power though?
Um, hmm. I mean, there are a lot of times where I do question sometimes the ethics of using empathy to sell. Like, I mean, there's always kind of that question of like, it's still commerce, it's still a commercial pursuit. And like on good days, I'm like, but it's business. It's not, necessarily trying to like extract dollars and cents out of everybody. But there are questions like that of, is it really ethical to, get in the heads of people to, make them do what you want them to do? And I mean, I have that question constantly. And I guess I don't know that I have an answer for it.
Have you ever read the book Hooked?
No.
So Nir Eyal, Nireyal, wrote this book called Hooked. And there's a morality matrix towards the end of the book. And it talks about where you are as a designer based on these 4 things. So where you end up on the quadrant is who you are. So if it's a product that you would use and it helps people, you're in the best quadrant you could be in. If it's a product you use but it doesn't help people, you're making games, right? Something for fun. If it's a product that you wouldn't use but it helps people, you're still okay, right? It's not something that helps you, but it helps other people. You're still in the great part of the best quadrant, but there's a fine line there. But if you make a product that you won't even allow your kids to use, you won't use, it doesn't help people, you are now a pusher.
Yeah, that's a great quadrant, that's a great grid, and something that I think I want to make sure is taped up to my wall as a reminder not to be a pusher.
I have a quadrant up here, something different, but it's still a 4 quadrant. It's the circle of potential. So there's belief, potential, action, results, right? It's here to remind me that if I believe in my potential, I will take action. I will get results that reinforce the belief in my potential. And that goes the opposite way too. If I don't believe in my potential, I won't take action. The results I get will reinforce, like the fact that I'm not getting anything from not acting will reinforce the belief that I don't have the potential. So that can keep going in either direction. Like whether I think I can or I think I can't, either way I'm right. I think it's a great quadrant to have up there. uh, that there's a lot of books I have to suggest other people to read, but I have like a couple more questions and I'll let you have the rest of your evening back. Is there like a question, quote, or mantra that has helped change your perspective? Like that turning point, something that stuck with you once you heard it?
Yeah, I guess it's really a book that has turned into the title of which has turned into a mantra um, over the last, I would say, probably year or two. It's a book called Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. She is a writer. She is a writer who is in recovery. She is she's just a great writer in general, but this book in particular is basically her philosophy on writing. And the title comes from her childhood experience of her brother putting off an essay that he had to write about birds until the very last minute. And her dad saying to her little brother, when the little brother was saying, how am I going to get all this done? And he just says, bird by bird. So you take it one bird at a time, you take it one piece at a time. And that's the way work gets done. Like, I tend to think very big, and I want to write the whole essay right now, or want to have the whole television series completed in the next hour. So that mantra, just bird by bird, just bird by bird.
There's another way that I've heard this that's inspired me as well, because that's beautiful, man. It's so true. Step by step, one day at a time, just for today. Like, all of those have a ring to it, and that's like a constant theme in life. Just take it one step at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? I think it's funny that you mentioned that big thinking. That's another one of those creative curses. Like, we see the entire vision, and now you want me to scale it back to steps, but I can, like, it's here. I just want to take it here and put it there. I don't want to do all the stuff in between. Can I hire someone? When I used to do, okay, so 2009 to 2007 to 2012, I made 16 albums back to back, just writing albums. Every month another album was coming out, and then there'd be like this 4-month break, and I thought I was broken, and then it all come out again because I lived life and did some things, right? So all these albums were concept albums. It didn't start with making the songs. It started with making the album art, making the cover, writing out what the names of the songs were, how the album was going to flow, like what the theme was going to be for this one, what is the concept, and then I'd go back and write. And sometimes I'd even pick out the beats ahead of time. I didn't even know what the words were going to be on them. I just knew the feeling that I wanted to. And when I was younger, I would draw, and my mom would be like, "Why are you drawing a foot?" I'm like, "Well, because this person's kicking this person, and I want to start with the action and work my way from the action to the person." So whatever the action part was that I knew I wanted to make, I'd start with that and work my way backwards. And then I learned something about beginning with the end in mind here recently. And I feel like that's how we work as creatives. We start with the end and then trace our way back to how we get there. Because we got to bring
That
people
is,
along with us, right?
yeah, that is so true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're long story is, we've all been separated from family to some degree over the last 18 months, 24 months, however long all of this has gone on. And we found an opportunity, my family and I, to kind of work on this film project that had been sitting in the back for some time. And it was very much that of all of a sudden, what was maybe intended at first to be a 10-minute, little short or something like that, I'd blown into, okay, it's 20 short films interconnected. It's telling this journey of life, and this is the metaphor, and this. And so now I'm using that mantra because it's about birds. It uses birds as the metaphor. Bird by bird has taken on a very different meaning because that is the mantra for this project, is like to get this done, to get each short film that is in its way about birds and stuff like that. It's like the only way to get this done is to take it bird by bird. So
Yeah,
really has.
beautiful. So with that said, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that is all.
I was gonna say, is there a question that you think everyone should be asking themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. That in and of itself is a great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, I always found the whole find your why thing super trite. And I was like, I guess as a bit of a contrarian, as a bit of a misfit, wanted to be like, that is so self-indulgent and so and Simon Sinek thinks nothing of my generation, so he can go fly a kite and all this stuff. But I, really sat down and did the work that I would do for a client, that I would do at a company that I work for myself for once. And it was really fulfilling. It was really good to have that degree of self-care in there, of saying, I'm going to take my brand seriously. I'm going to take my website, portfolio site seriously. I'm going to build the beginnings of brand guidelines and figure out like what my voice and tone actually is. And so I'm looking forward to putting that into a subdomain on the website, like it kind of exists in a Google Doc. But doing
cool.
that has been huge. So I think it really is like, why? Why do I want to do this? And if I don't want to do this, I should do something else. And that's fine. And that's even better,
Yeah, it's so true. I remember seeing the sign that I struggle with that same thing. How do you remain humble and make a portfolio, right? I'm supposed to talk about myself in an interview. I'm supposed to present myself to the world, but I've been a selfish and self-centered person my whole life. And I've like in my music back in 07 to 2012, like my ego was all over that. I was a mess. Everyone that worked with me, like it was all about me. So I've been called humble a couple times, which feels weird because it was always arrogant, conceited, all about yourself, self-centered, self-absorbed. It feels weird to hear that you're humble, but I was going somewhere with that, I swear. How do you talk about your why, that you're doing something without that? There's that fine line between why I'm doing this and self-centeredness. And
yes.
My coach always says, if you're not excited in the morning to get up and take on the day, your why isn't strong enough. Your purpose, right? Tony Robbins says that the problem we have is not resources, it's resourcefulness. Because when you know why you're doing something, how do you do it, what happens, all the factors, all the things you have to plug in, money, all that stuff doesn't matter, because your desire alone will vibrate a frequency that will bring everything you need to you. You're going to turn on the reticular activating system in your mind, and you're going to all of a sudden notice things that you never noticed before because you're focused on something and you have a purpose. And when that purpose is bigger than us, right? When it's not just about why I want to do it, but how is this going to help the world, right? When the purpose becomes bigger than you, it multiplies. Like, how much you can do and how much impact you make, right? I love that you said that. And so what's really funny, I have these little show notes, and the first thing I was going to ask you about was your why. And we went on this creative journey because misfits are the best fit. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah. I do it to actually, this is the funny thing is I write things down and then I forget what they are. So good thing, Gregory, that I wrote it down and did my golden circle and
So
documented
I
it
felt
for myself.
I felt
Um,
really bad because sometimes I forget my why and I have to revisit it written. And I'm like, if it's really your why do you have to revisit it, right? Because I'm not
yeah.
trained.
And you know what? It's because I don't think about myself that much. Like, I don't, I guess it's just kind of like you find it. And then as a result, like you go, okay, I found it. It's like, I guess your car keys, right? It's like, I have them, maybe I misplace it every now and again, but like I know they're in the house and all that good stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess it's really that. But kind of going back to the humble piece of like, how do you go down this process without feeling self-indulgent or self-centered or whatever? Um, for me, it was like an exercise in empathy of somebody wants to know what I do and why I do it. And so it's just lightening the cognitive load for those people. Like it's not really about the self-indulgence for me. It's about making things a little bit easier for somebody else to understand because they're trying to hire somebody or they're trying to find a creative collaborator or they're trying to do whatever. And if I can concisely explain who I am and what I do and why I do it, then that helps them decide, make whatever decision they want to make. So I tend to frame these things like the why, how, what as like a continuous sentence,
Yeah.
so that you have the why that's to create evocative experiences for the masses. How? By conjuring my experience on the margins. What? So the content we design hums in harmony with anybody. And I feel like that margins piece is like the misfits. It's the maybe there are no logos, maybe there is no college diploma, maybe there is neurodiversity, maybe there's, whatever, but we can evoke something in others because of our experiences not being a part of sometimes, or having to find a different part of.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Wow. So I've talked about it on the show so many times, but my mission, vision, and the purpose of why I started this is questions have changed my life. And I know I've always thought that we've needed something outside of ourselves to make ourselves better. And the higher I go in life on the ladder of success, and the further I go into people that I thought I looked up to, thought they were gods, right? The more I'm finding out that they're humble people that practice principles in all their affairs. And most of what we do is communication, and innovation comes from questions, asking questions, not getting the answer, asking the right questions. Because I would ask my mom a question when I was younger, and she'd say, "Go look it up." And we had these things called encyclopedias.
I remember those encyclopedias very well.
Yeah. So the encyclopedias, the dictionary, and what I was looking for was never there. So it just caused this brain that never stopped questioning. And I don't know if that was the cause, or if that was just what it was, and that was what made me realize that I could not stop questioning. Um, then somewhere around 13 or 14, I did LSD, and there was 2 million questions in 1 minute. And I was like, oh, they get worse. Yeah, that's another whole other topic for itself. One last question for you. So I know you said where you could find you, billkurland.com. I'm looking at it right now. If you've not seen this guy's portfolio website, it is amazing. And now that you've seen this, go check out the website. I'm going to put it in the description as well. Just pure genius. I'm not even, you're going to have to go see what I'm talking about. There. And
good sir.
Are there 2 people that you would like to see me interview on the show?
Yes. Clifton Simmons,
Okay.
who is UX content manager at Allstate.
Oh, wow.
He was my neighbor. He's an incredible human being on top of just an incredible writer, UXer, all this stuff. Was very helpful at a turning point in my career. He's awesome. Who's the other? I'm also going to give a shout out to Erin Williams, who's head of content strategy at Walmart now.
Wow.
She's been very, very helpful over the last 6 months, and very helpful is probably an understatement. So if I need to reach out to these people to help them get on the show, I will do that. But they did a lot for me. So the least I can do is help them have, a platform.
Most of my money goes to Walmart and Allstate, so that would be really cool to have them on the show.
Absolutely. I will reach out to them and say, hey, on top of all of the other things that you've done for me,
right?
You should also, you should be on the show, because it's a great podcast, and it's been so lovely taking the time to talk to you. You're so smart. I feel like I have a new friend, like I have a new member of the community. And I look forward to all the conversations we're going to have after this.
Same here. I'm gonna stop the recording here in a minute, and we'll talk for just like 2 more minutes on exchanging information. This all started from him trying to expand his network on LinkedIn and adding me. And then we missed each other a couple times in trying to connect. And this is our first time actually speaking. I think that's like one of the beauties of this podcast, is that I don't know most of the people that come on before they come on. And so it's a discovery process for both of us.
Yeah, and it was amazing how quickly we were like, oh wow, we're the same person.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Wow, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna do my rhyme one last time, right? So there's people that want me to bring back the song from the first, if you go back and watch first couple episodes, the song was in there. It was a beat I made myself. It was like, comment, subscribe, share. Hate me if you really feel the need to take it there. We can address that too. Question me, question you, question everything. 'Cause that's what we do. See y'all next time.